Hello everybody, this is Carl Rust coming to you live from Mary Feser School, and today I'm going to talk about classroom management, student engagement. So hang in there, we're going to have some fun, and hopefully you will learn something. Okay, the first thing with student engagement is you have to get their attention. So there's a little thing in the front of the brain, prefrontal cortex, that is the off and on switch in the brain. So to make sure somebody's listening, you have to get their attention. And Chris Biffle, Whole Brain Teaching for Challenging Students, has some great suggestions on this, but he talks about class yes. Teacher says class, the class says yes. Just so they don't get too used to that, you change it up. You say it in different pitches, different ways. There's lots of different ways to do it. Some teachers I have seen also will use a clap, where the students have to clap back, and then they are supposed to focus their attention on the teacher. So that's one thing. First of all, make sure you get their attention. Then you wait. When you do your signal, you don't just keep plowing along, because I've seen teachers that have a couple people listening and a lot of people not listening, and they just keep right on going. So the idea of the attention getter is make sure that you get their attention and that you have their attention before you start the instruction. Okay, the second thing to keep in mind when you're working on student engagement is you have to keep them involved. You want to keep them actively involved. There's a research that says after about 50 seconds to a minute, you're losing people's attention. So you give them something to do. For instance, like right now, if you were in a group of people, I might say, let's pause the video and talk about how you can get students' attention and how you're going to keep them involved. So why don't you talk about that right now? If you're by yourself, use your sockless hand puppets and talk about how you're going to keep students involved and get their attention. And then just pause the video and we'll be right back. Okay, next thing for student engagement is to try to think as much as possible, where is the fun? And so while you're doing your lessons or planning your lessons, think about ways that you can put some differences, some fun things in there. As much as you can make learning a game, that will increase student engagement. They love games, even if there's no winner or loser really, they just love competing in a game. So try to keep it fun, get their attention, keep them involved. Where's the fun? That's something you can break up with. So the next point I want to make about student engagement is, why do they care? So whenever possible, if you can include some student interest, if you give them some choices, not only about subjects, like choosing something to study, but if you can give them a choice into how to present their learning, that will make it more fun for them. And if you can build on student interest and things that they're interested in, they will care about the work and they will do a better job and they will stay more engaged. So we're going to keep moving along here. Next point. Okay, student engagement. We've got 5 things going here, and here's number 5. Keep the pace lively. Keep them active. Don't get bogged down into little details. So if you're working on something as a group, and you give them something to do, you kind of have to gauge, okay, when are they starting to get a little weary of this, and don't feel like you have to wait for every single student to finish every single thing before you move on. And just keep things popping along, because the more active and the more lively you keep the pace, the less disengagement you'll see and the less bad behavior you'll see. So the more you can keep things moving along. And remember, it's not the end of the world if they don't finish something. So just keep moving, keep the pace lively, and that takes a lot of really good planning. So you really have to plan out, what am I going to do next, and be thinking on your feet all the time. So we're going to keep moving around the room. And so here's my last point with student engagement. Use as many parts of the brain as you can that keep them active. So not just listening, not just reading what's going on, not just writing, but also speaking and listening to their peers, gestures, movement, if you can get them up, or if you want them to do some gestures, you can do a thing called mirror words, where you say mirror words and they say mirror words, and then they repeat all your gestures and all your words at that point, and that will help them actually. The more parts of the brain that you engage, the more they will remember. Even emotions. A big part of long-term memory seems to be emotional. So if you can connect emotions, even sometimes if it's a little bit fake. So if you say, okay, class, tell your neighbor how much you love to learn about sentences. And then they'll say to each other, oh, I love to learn about sentences. And it may not even be real, but the research says it doesn't matter if it's real or not. They will still engage the limbic system, will still engage their brain, and still help them remember. So here's our 6 things. There's a great book called Whole Brain Teaching for Challenging Students. I encourage you to get that book and read it. It's very practical, nuts and bolts about what to do in your classroom. Lots and lots of techniques and strategies to try. But for student engagement, get their attention. Keep them involved. Where's the fun? Come on, let's make it a little fun. Why do they care? Give them some choices. Keep the pace lively. And see how many parts of the brain that you can engage in your lessons. And if you'll follow these things, you'll have much more engaged students. So I've got some other tips for you coming up, but this is my classroom management, student engagement. Thanks for listening and watching.